Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Fireside Chat. I'm Dennis Prager. This is number 360. So I have an interesting opening statement, and it won't be long, although I say that every week and then they end up long. So I'm well aware of that, but I don't think this will happen this time. Be that as it may. So Israel is attacked around the world, Western world, Muslim world, Eastern world, United Nations, everywhere, because of bombing in Gaza. So Israel should not be bombing in Gaza, even though there is no choice, because the Hamas terrorists hide among civilians deliberately in schools and hospitals, everywhere there are civilians. I mean, everyone knows this. No one denies that. So the question is, what should Israel do? Nothing with people who want to annihilate them. But my subject is not that. My subject is this. So just last week, quite a number of Hezbollah, which is the Lebanese version of Hamas, another group directed by Iran to eradicate Israel and to kill as many Jews in Israel as possible. That's their entire purpose. They have ruined Lebanon, and it's a perverse universe. But my point is the following. Somehow Israel sort of ingeniously got to the pagers that Hezbollah members use, and it blew many of them up, wounding many and killing a few. And the reason, by the way, they use pagers is they know that if they use regular cell phones, Israel will be able to monitor them. So they went to pagers, and now the pagers blew up. So Israel is now attacked for blowing up the pagers of Hezbollah terrorists. The New York Times had an article just a couple of days ago by, I'm sorry to say, needless to say, a former professor at the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton. But it's sort of what you expect from a professor. It's so convoluted, it's frightening. And this, by the way, is a quote-unquote pro-Israel professor. Israel has committed a war crime by attacking the Hezbollah members through their pagers and then walkie-talkies. So you will think, why? Everyone I have asked, how do people who attack Israel for blowing up some terrorists, how do they get to call it a war crime? On what grounds? And so everybody guesses because there might have been a civilian who was killed as well, which in a few cases did happen. But that's not the reason. When I tell you the reason, you will be blown away. What can I say? You ready? Because I'm telling you, these three guys, if I said to them, I'm not giving you food till you guess the reason the professor in the New York Times said it was a war crime, they would starve to death. You would not come up with it. The reason, the man's name is Michael Walzer. You could check on this, lest you think I am in any way exaggerating. Because the terrorists were not committing an act of terror when they were blown up. Amazing? You never would have guessed it. It's so bizarre. It's sort of like, I was thinking, I told this to, I think it was to my wife, said it would be like saying it was a war crime to kill Hitler during the war, because at the moment that he was killed, he was actually having lunch He wasn't directing the Nazi army or any concentration camp. I don't know how people come up with this. But the reason there are a number of reasons I am offering you this little anecdote. One is to give you an idea of what the New York Times publishes. This is par for the course morally and intellectually. Second, this is par for the course for what professors write. None of this brings me any joy, by the way. None of it. I grew up as a kid almost worshiping the New York Times. I was so in love with the New York Times that when I moved to California in my 20s, I subscribed to the New York Times. There was no internet then. This is the 1970s, middle of the 1970s. And I actually subscribed to the New York Times, so the physical paper in California, I would get like 4 days worth at a time, about 4 days later. And I still subscribed. And now it's worthless. It's actually worse than worthless. And as regards professors at universities, it's beyond depressing. But isn't that amazing? That's one reason, or two reasons. The New York Times, professors. The third reason is there is nothing Israel can do to defend itself against people who want to exterminate them. There's nothing they can do. If they bomb, they're called mass murderers. If they target only the terrorists, it's a war crime because the terrorists may not have been committing an act of terror when blown up. It was, who is it? Yes. This great newspaper in England, one of the greatest on earth, is the Telegraph. One of its writers wrote that what we're experiencing is Israelophobia. I hadn't thought of that. Or as Julie Hartman, the young woman I do my Dennis and Julie podcast with, which you would love, you should check it out. She said it's Israel derangement syndrome. Such a great point. When it comes to Israel, like when it comes to Trump, rational thought is thrown out the window. Trump is worthy of criticism, and Israel is worthy of criticism. Who is not worthy of criticism? And with Israel, it doesn't matter what it does. It's wrong. It's evil. That's derangement syndrome. So it's worth realizing they targeted terrorists and they committed war crimes. Okay, that's all I have to say. Let's go to your questions.
Hi, Dennis. I'm Joseph Hansen. I'm a law student at Liberty University. I've noted in my time at the university, and actually even before my time at the university, that we live in a time where there are a lot of people who live in fear. You probably have noted it as well, but you'll hear a lot of young conservatives, especially people who have recently gotten married, who will share the sentiment that they don't think, or they're not sure if they should be starting a family within our uncertain times. Now, of course, I believe that we should not live our lives in fear. I think it's very important to not live a life in fear. I think you need to embrace the time in which you live and accept it as the adventure of your lifetime. However, I know that you probably have thought about this already and have some articulate responses to it, so I would be interested to hear what your opinion is and what your reason is for why an individual should try to live their life without fear, or to live life courageously, perhaps would be a better way to put it. Anyways, I enjoy listening to your Fireside chat, and I will look forward to hearing your answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There are two separate questions here. One is fear, and the other is, what do I say to people who don't want to start a family because of fear? So it's related, but it's a separate issue. So on the fear issue, I've often noted, thanks to a dear friend of mine who pointed out to me, Rabbi David Woznicka, a great rabbi in Los Angeles. He noted and he had read it himself, that when God speaks to man in the Old Testament, the thing he most often says is, do not fear. That's why fear of God is important, because if you fear God, you don't fear man. Fear of God is really, really important for many reasons. But on the issue of fear, a generation or two has been raised on fear of everything. That's why I have said on my radio show so often, safety über alles. Our motto is safety above all. Better safe than sorry is the motto. But that's not true. Yeah, of course it's better safe than sorry, but you don't know you'll be sorry if you just stay safe. You have to use reason. I mean, if it's better safe than sorry, don't fly, don't cross the street, don't drive a car, don't leave your house, essentially. Everything is a risk. We have raised, or a generation has been raised, believing that pain must be avoided. It's pain that people fear, right? But if you are guided by the principle of avoiding pain, you will lead an utterly flat life. The purpose of life is not to avoid pain. The purpose of life is to live fully. As I've said often, I don't want on my tombstone, here lies Dennis Prager. He experienced very little pain, or he avoided pain very effectively. Everything worthwhile, everything has pain. Tell me what accomplishment, what achievement in life doesn't involve pain. I've written, 9 or 10 books. It was a pain in every single instance, but it's worth it. Women who give birth have real pain in childbirth. Very few would say, man, if I knew how painful childbirth would be, I never would have had this child. No, most women go through it and then sometime later go, I want another child. The pain was worth it. What athlete hasn't experienced massive pain? To become a professional athlete, whether it's in a team sport, an individual sport, there's so much pain attached. Physical pain, the pain of constantly practicing when you want to do other things. Yes, so even in good times, getting married and making a family involves pain. That's just the way it is. So what is your alternative? Never marrying and never having children? Oh, you mean there's no pain there? Really? You're alone as such. I know you have friends, and I think friends are critical, but still, it's not the same thing. And that has no pain? There's no pain in a single life? There's no pain in never marrying and never having children or grandchildren? That's pain-free? It's not like life's a choice between pain and no pain. It's basically between pain and pain. You might as well do the pain that comes with something deep. So the fear is pain. Now, with regard to, we live in really bad times, why make a family? If that were the guiding principle in human history, none of us would be here. We would be a dead race, the human race. Tell me what period in history was free of crisis, of danger, or even just of evil. It didn't exist. Americans have had it so good, however, compared to the rest of humanity, that they became spoiled and they thought somehow that's the norm. Did people start having children in America during the Depression? Did they stop having children during World War I or World War II? No, they didn't. No, nobody had, or maybe I can't say nobody, but it was hardly an issue. Oh, we have such crisis. I'm not going to have a child. I'm not going to get married. I don't have respect for that decision, to be honest. All it is you're somewhat spoiled. Now, I don't blame you totally for being spoiled. Not you, of course. This is Joseph, right? Yeah. No, not you, Joseph. But I'm you watching. If this is if you're spoiled, I don't blame you. Somebody spoiled you. But you need to be aware of it and undo it. But somebody did it to you, like helicopter parents, not wanting you to have a moment of pain. So that's my answer. My purpose in life is not to avoid pain. My purpose in life is to live fully. It's worked out great, and I've had plenty of pain. Prager United member, PragerUnited.com. That's what keeps the Fireside chat free for the world and everything else we do at PragerU. Please go to PragerUnited.com. There are massive benefits, including this little one of you get the first question after the video question, but there are bigger benefits. And it's a great feeling helping PragerU keep everything we do free. PragerUnited.com. Kenny A. in Monaco, or Monaco. Is it Monaco or Monaco, right? It's Monaco. Where I've been, by the way. Hello, Dennis. How do you reconcile living in a society where things such as homosexuality or tattoos have become commonplace when the Bible, specifically the Old Testament, condemns them? I struggle with the idea of having friends who openly sin and defend such practice versus respecting God's word. Thank you, and God bless you and everyone at PragerU. Well, he certainly has blessed me and us. So I have an answer for you, since by Old Testament, we're really referring to the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, of the whole Bible. And that's where all the laws are, 613 laws, actually. So you're right, both are prohibited. Male homosexuality and tattoos, that is correct. So what do I do with that? I'll tell you, I've worked this out very systematically. I'm sure I have spoken about this here, but I'm also sure nobody remembers. Well, not nobody, but I don't expect people to remember. I make a lot of points in any given Fireside chat. So I have a motto: standards in the macro, compassion in the micro. It's a very good way to live life. So I still believe that heterosexuality, male-female love and male-female marriage is the ideal. I still believe that it's ideal not to have tattoos. I'm guided by my Bible and my Torah in that way. But I also live real life and know how many decent people are, as they put it, gay, and how many decent people have tattoos. On the tattoos, I just got to tell you, when I see a person with tattoos, like at the airport where I tend to live, I assume nothing about that person. I don't assume they're a winner. I don't assume they're a loser. I don't assume they're bright. I don't assume they're not bright. I don't assume they're kind. I don't assume they're not kind. In other words, it tells me nothing about the person. When I grew up a fairly heavily tattooed person, people had reasons for suspicions. This is not probably a quality, deep person. Not anymore. There are terrific people with tattoos. There are awful people without tattoos. Again, I still, my druthers are that people not get tattooed. Having said that, I will admit, if it's on the neck or face, that's a bad sign. I do believe, generally speaking, certainly faces, but neck is In other words, if there's no way you can hide it, it's not a good sign. That I will admit. As for homosexuality, I can only tell you that, again, I can continue to believe that marriage should be male-female. That has been my position. I didn't change it when the court ruled that it should be changed. I didn't change it because the majority of my fellow citizens think it was the right thing to change the definition of marriage. They didn't think that 15 years ago, incidentally. It just shows you the power of practice. What society practices becomes normative for most people. My position was always marriage should be between a man and a woman. It was also always that gays should have the same rights as married people, but it shouldn't be called marriage. Marriage is what it is, or is what it has always been. And I'll tell you one of the reasons. One of the reasons was the biggest argument for redefining marriage was gender doesn't matter. That was their words. Gender doesn't matter. Well, now we're seeing the upshot of the concept of gender doesn't matter. The upshot is gender doesn't exist. You make up your own gender. Gender is what you feel. Gender doesn't matter became within 3 years. Gender doesn't exist. It's a subjective term of one's feelings. It's really led to chaos. Having said that, my wife and I are the godparents to a gay couple's children. They know our position on same-sex marriage. We know that they're married. We love them. And they love us. So much so that if they die, they want us to raise their kids. Certainly be the moral instructors of their kids, even though we don't believe in same-sex marriage. But that no more disqualifies us in their eyes than their being married to one another disqualifies them in our eyes. Is that clear? I'll tell you another thing. One of the greatest voices for the West and for Israel today is Douglas Murray, who's a gay man. And he's not alone. Again, if you're gay, I don't know anything else about you. I don't know if you're kind. I don't know if you're mean. I don't know if you're bright. I don't know if you're dumb. I know nothing. I only know that. Just like with the tattooed people. So I have not compromised my values, but I understand that whereas I can oppose a practice, I don't necessarily judge the person. Next. Oh, this is a good one. Faith, 20 years old, Jacksonville, Alabama. Shalom, Dennis. If you had a daughter and not only sons, how do you think it would affect your way of thinking or parenting? Ready? Not at all. Not at all. I would raise a daughter just like I would raise a son. The fact that people raise, and I'm a big believer that boys and girls are different, men and women are different, but in terms of how you raise them, no way. The only difference is I would have to teach my boys self-control in the arenas of violence and sex. I would have to teach a girl self-control in the area of emotions. Girls have to conquer their emotions, their feelings, and boys have to conquer their behavior, sexual and aggression, respectively. That's it. Other than that, I wouldn't baby a girl. I would raise her with very strong principles, just like a boy. I don't think she would be able to wrap daddy around her finger. They always say that, oh, my daughter, she could wrap me around her finger. I don't think that would happen with me. I don't have one, so I don't know. But my younger son and his wife are due in a couple of months. And he asked me that when he found out it was a girl. So, Dad, what's your advice about raising a girl? You didn't have any. What's your advice? I said, raise her like you would a boy. And he thought it was terrific. It answered the question. What's our timing?
Time for one or two more.
Good. Henry, Atlanta, Georgia. How do you battle complacency? I don't battle complacency because I have no predilection toward it. I battle plenty of things. Complacency is not one of them. I wouldn't know how to be complacent if I were paid to do so. I care deeply about important things like good and evil. So it's impossible for me to be complacent. If I become complacent, God forbid, but it means that I've been affected in my mind. So something radical has happened. I don't know how to be complacent. So I guess I can't give a great answer because it's not an issue that I have to fight. I would just say, though, that when you think about it, by complacency, for those not English-speaking native language, what is that like? Not being bothered by things, being sort of, how would you define it?
I would think like just battling boredom.
So you associate it with boredom. Mm-hmm. Well, it might well be, but it's not the same thing as boredom. Look up, just define complacency. My understanding is it's not particularly caring about something. And that is a big issue. A lot of people don't care about the big issues. That's a very sad thing. What does it say?
A feeling of contentment or self-satisfaction, especially when coupled with an unawareness of danger, trouble, or controversy.
Okay, fine. Anna Lena, 34 years old, Weissenborn, Thuringia, Germany. Dear Dennis, you have mentioned that you don't know of any language in which there is a word for like, as like, like, I like to read. Okay. In German, we say mögen, ich mag Pizza. And we also say verdienen, earn. I know it's one of your favorite words. Those are two of my favorite words, like and earn. You really listen. It brings me joy. Your show keeps me sane here in left-leaning Germany. Thank you, Annalena. Boy, would I like to meet you. I don't know, though. I have to look up where Thuringia is. That's fascinating. English is a Germanic language. People don't know that. That's why we have the word night, N-I-G-H-T. It's a strange spelling for the word night because it comes from the German Nacht, N-A-C-H-T. Kindergarten, it's a perfect example. But so English is a Germanic language. It's not a Romance language like Italian, French, Portuguese. So it's not surprising that you have like and earn, but they're very rare in languages, and they are my two favorite words, probably.
Good, sir.
Oh, okay. Oh, the next one from Little Rock, Arkansas is so good. Next week, start me with Little Rock. By the way, I do want to mention there's a new PragerU video out, actually documentary, not just video, The Void, perfectly named, because a lot of people are living in a void. Emotional, moral, intellectual, psychological. That's why there's so much depression. This is for everybody to watch, but especially young people. Just go to PragerU.com and or go on the app, whichever one, and look for The Void. By the way, periodically, I don't know how often, maybe 3 times a year, I remember to tell you, but I'm working so hard on completing my Bible commentary, the first 5 books of the Bible, called The Rational Bible. I promise you it will be life-changing. The next book, the 4th of the 5, is coming out in a couple of months. So please consider getting it and reading it. It's called The Rational Bible, the Book of Numbers, or In the Wilderness, as it's called in Hebrew. Thanks so much. See you next week. The Fireside Chat is made possible solely thanks to Prager United members. Please consider joining Prager United at pragerunited.com.